why you want to set up templates, how it makes it so much easier. And so I know you can have admin, and I do have an admin account in Command, but I always just sign in as Michael. All of our admin sign in as Michael because it connects you to the whole team. We just haven't, again, the team piece in Command wasn't built out when we first started using Command. So we all learned how to just log into Michael's account, and that connects the whole team. And so that's just what we've always done. So when you go to an opportunity, I'm going to create a fake opportunity for me, potentially. There we go. So then you can see how the templates work inside Command and how it helps your agent. So I don't know how you guys have your Command set up, or you have your agents using Command, but we use Command to submit all of our documents. Of course, all of our commissions. I think that everybody pretty much in the Market Center is at that place. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, so do you have your agents creating their loops from Command, or do they create the loops in Dotloop and then you have to manually download the documents to then upload them into your opportunity?
Ours start through Dotloop.
Okay, so this is a game changer for the admin and for your agents because they create the opportunity, right? They come in and they can click this document section. And right here where it says start a transaction, as long as they have their Dotloop connected to Command, which you can do in the settings, and that's a whole nother training that we can do if you want to. You just click start a transaction. And we also have DocuSign connected because we find some places agents use the DocuSign. We typically use Dotloop. So you just click your Dotloop. Because I'm in Michael's team account, it's going to ask me when I click start a transaction. Oh, hang on a second. Here we go. So it's going to ask me whose profile I want to use in Dotloop. So sometimes our agents get a little behind and they don't get their opportunity created before they actually start their paperwork, et cetera, which it sounds like then, you know, with Kelsey, that's what they're doing because they're starting right in Dotloop. So our admin will come in and create an opportunity for them and do all of this. But anyway, so I'm going to just pick Michael. And I have to get, sorry, the control panel for Zoom is in the way. I've got to get out of the way. Then I click continue. Then you can see these Dotloop templates that we have set up. So we have a residential listing, residential buyer, new construction buyer, lot buyer, new construction listing. And so we've gone through and I've created all of these templates. So then because I said this is a listing, a residential listing loop, I'm going to choose that. And then I'm going to tell it okay. And it's working right here to create that loop within Dotloop. And so then when this go to transaction pops up, you click that and it's going to launch me into Dotloop. And here's my loop. It already has all of the required documents that I need as the agent to get signed. It'll have my clients down here already denoted as the sellers. You do have to assign yourself as, or your agent, I should say, so they have a role as well. So when you open these, then they'll auto populate like you're used to. The other advantage to having the template set up is you can preload these documents. And so, for example, the consumer guide to agency, you can go in and it has to have Myrna's name on it. It has to have the brokerage name, and it has to have the broker's phone number, correct? And so when you go in here, we've already preloaded that for our agents. So they don't ever have to type in this information right here. I already have it set up for them. So they come in and it will autofill their name as long as they've selected that they're the listing agent. It'll fill that in, see where it's yellow. And then you go down here and it's already assigned the clients to sign. And so then you can just click save and off you go. So for example, our new construction with Payne Homes is very particular about wording in the contract. And so I've set up a Dotloop template that has their particular wording. And so when our agents are setting up those, Magnolia Point is the subdivision that we work with Payne Homes in. So when they go in and they use Magnolia Point buyer for their template, it already has all of the language that Payne Homes wants in their purchase contracts built in for them, so they don't have to spend all that time typing it in already. They can use these loop templates if they start a loop from Dotloop, But what happens is in command, and now that I have that here, I can go right here and I can click, see it says attach files from, and you can choose Dotloop or you can choose your computer manually. And so when your agents are creating their loop first, you know you have to download all of those individual documents and then pull them up into their spot right here. But what you can do is if you choose Dotloop, if they create the loop from the opportunity, then you can click and say, okay, this is exclusive right to sell. I want to load that right here. And so then it will pull in, it's pulling in right now. This turns blue, that bluish green color. There you go. And so then you can put all of your documents in here, right? Just with a couple clicks of a button, and then you can submit them. So we ask our agents to always start their loops from the opportunity. Do they do it 100% of the time? Of course not, but it really helps cut down on the admin side. I don't know how you guys have your team set up, but the agents, our admin are not licensed, so we can't ask people to sign documents. But when our agents get a new listing or a new contract, they alert our admin team, and our admin team goes back and we're the team's compliance. So we have our first level of compliance within the team where either our transaction coordinator or myself, but normally our cyberbacker that we have is our listing manager right now. And so she looks at all of their listing paperwork and makes sure that it's filled out correctly and completely before she submits it to the office for compliance review at the office level. Our transaction coordinator does that on any pending deals. And so before they attach it here, they're looking in the loop to make sure that everything is done correctly. Let me go back to Dotloop. Okay, so now we'll get into how to create your template. Do you guys have any questions about what I just showed you? That was a ton of stuff, I feel like.
I like that you have the different templates for new construction and just like regular listing or buyer or whatever.
Right, yeah, and that really helps your agent because honestly, not to throw, we have fantastic agents, but a lot of times when they're in here, if they don't use the loop template, they're not sure if they have all their documents, the required documents, right? They're sort of like, did I get them all? I don't really know. And so if you have your template set up, and this is a peek at what we have, we have all of the ones on the buyer side that we could think of that we could potentially do. We don't do any rentals. That's something we don't deal with at all on our team. We only help people buy and sell. So I don't have a template set up for that, but you could do that if you work with rentals. But like I said, the agents are moving so fast, it helps them. If you have your template set up, they know when they use one of our loop templates, they're going to have 100% of their required documents in that loop ready to go. So they don't ever have to second guess that I get everything I'm supposed to have.
Yeah.
So to set this up with the preloaded, so you can go in and you can create a loop template and not have your documents preloaded for your agents, but it really helps, again, just to cut down on time and make sure that they're filling them out correctly and make sure they don't miss anything. So I go ahead and preload what I can for them. And to do that, you have to go to documents up here, and then we're going to click new folder. You name your new folder. I'm just going to put in test. And then you click create folder. So then it gives you this. I always use the templates to load stuff in because I want the documents to be interactive where they preload, right? So when you have your loop, if your documents are interactive, when you open them, they're going to automatically put people in their role as long as you have the roles assigned. So if you have a seller assigned, it'll mark everywhere that the seller is supposed to initial or sign already. If you have your agent as the as the listing agent or the buyer's agent, it'll assign all of the places that they're supposed to initial or sign. You can add flat templates from a PDF from your computer, but they're not going to be the interactive ones. And that's a pain in the rear end. So I always just use the template option. So you click that, and then you're going to come over here. A lot of times you can see that we have Prather Team seller and buyer. Again, those are ones that I created that I know have the language that we need in there. For you guys, in order to create those, what you want to do is you want to come to you can use either a seller or a buyer, or you can pick through the Bluegrass interactive forms. And so I'm going to pick seller. You're going to go through and you're going to pick what you want. You have to have this one, right? A guide to agency relationships, agency consent agreement, coming soon. So you go through and you pick what you want, right? Exclusive right to sell. So I just made sure, again, when I did all of these, that I put in what the agents need for sure. Then you're just going to click copy, and you can see it's switching them over. You click OK. To preload them, you're just going to open the document itself, and then you type in what you want. So you need Myrna's name here. And then I don't know if your agents are picky, or your team leaders, your mega agents are picky like Michael Prather is, but he would shoot me if I left that as KWBG instead of typing it all out to say Keller Williams Bluegrass Realty.
Myrna,
But that's okay.
she always points
What was that?
That Myrna always points it out too.
Yes, yeah. Michael is very picky about that stuff. And of course his B, he has to have his B in the middle of his name, which I love. He's so funny. So you just go ahead and type that in, what you want to preload. You can scroll down and make sure, because there are some that require a lot more information in this. And then you just click save. And so now that's always going to be preloaded in this form. What else could you do? Nothing on this side, I don't think. There are some, I think Office Exclusive might have a place where you have to put, the listing office name. So again, you would put, Keller Williams Bluegrass in there.
If you up there in the left corner where it has the logo box.
Yeah, right here.
Can you add your logo to this and that would autosave?
You could. I don't know how to do that. It's not something that we do. Typically, when they have that logo box, I have always assumed that that's where the Keller Williams Bluegrass Realty logo is supposed to show up. And that's why they have these in the Bluegrass Realty seller folder, because it's the ones that they've put the logo on. But for some reason, ours always just shows up like this. So there's something that's supposed to show there, but it just doesn't come through on our side. I don't know why, but. So I click save and then go back. So that'll always be there. So once you have this set up, you can move these around to be in what order you want. Again, I try to make them in an order that makes sense for my brain as to what you're going to have signed first. So your coming soon Office Exclusive. Your guide to agency relationship is technically supposed to be signed before your potential clients share any confidential information. So if they're talking about what their mortgage payment, or how much they owe on their mortgage, or if they're sharing their financing on the buy side with you, those are considered confidential conversations. And so you're technically supposed to have your guide to agency relationships already signed. So I typically will put that one underneath their exclusive right to sell. So you can see, you can put these in whatever order you want. And then you're going to have that test template. From there, you can use that to then create your loop template. So you come down to loop template. If you can create a loop template again without having anything up here in your documents, but none of when you add a loop template and then you add the documents, none of those documents will be preloaded. They'll just be the blank document. And so if you don't have time to go ahead and preload them and do that first step, at least you have a template that gets them started with all of the correct paperwork. But I've just slowed down and took the time to create the template, so it's all preloaded. That way it's so much faster for them too. And so anyway, you're going to do your loop template. You just create, click this new loop template. Again, you name it. I'm going to keep the same name. And then you have to tell it what type of loop it is, or what type of transaction, I'm sorry. So I'm going to say listing for sale, create your template. So it looks like this. When you first start creating it, it's not enabled. So say you're in the process of creating this loop template, and then you have one of your agents comes in Dotloop and starts a loop. They're not going to be able to see this yet because you haven't finished it. Once you have it set up the way that you want it, then you have to click enable, and then they'll be able to find your loop template. So while you're in here working to get it all set up, they can't accidentally use it and then have a mess because it's not finished, unless you hit this enable. So you want to wait to do that. I don't know why they have this named add folder, but you have to click this to then be able to add documents. So you add a folder. Typically what we do is when I do them, the test, we name all of our folders based on what is in the folder. So we have listing documents first, and then when we get pending, we'll name that pending documents. And then when it's closed, we name another folder closing documents, and that has our settlement statement and our final walk in it. And I'll show you in our loops so you can get an idea, because I know some agents and some teams just throw it all in one folder. We try to be a little bit more organized than that, just so we can easily find stuff that we're looking for. So this is going to be all of the listing documents that they need. You click add document. You're going to use up here. Again, you can come in and you can use these folders that Bluegrass has set up already, but they're not going to be the preloaded ones that have the stuff in it already. I think that the office admin could preload those if they wanted to, but again, we find that we want stuff a little bit different. And so we would probably create our own anyway, just because that's how we do. So you're going to then click on your test, because it's going to have those preloaded documents that you have. You're going to just click select all as the easiest way to move them all at one time. Then you just click copy. And so now you can see they're all in your test loop right here, ready to go. And so if you, I don't know if I can actually open this from here. I don't think I can. So once you get them to this point, you have to scroll down and hit save. If you don't hit save and you move away from the screen, they will all go away and you'll have to go back and redo all of that. And so you want to click save. And at that point, if you're ever building a template or you need to adjust your template and put different documents in, what will happen is whatever document you add will automatically go to the bottom. And again, I try to put them in order for our agents. So we would have this in the order that it's showing right now. And then underneath this, I normally have the seller's disclosure. I have a lead-based paint form. Then I have our anti-fraud, our office anti-fraud disclosure, and then our Keller Williams business relationship disclosure, and then our input form at the bottom. Because I put the input form at the bottom because you don't have the seller sign that. You don't have to have the seller sign it. We fill it out on our side with the sellers, but we don't ever have them sign it because it's not required by KREC or the office. So you can rearrange these if you wanted to put this up here. You can move them wherever you want, and then you can come back down and save again, and those documents will always show in that order. So if you like to have everything nice and neat in a certain order, you can do that within your loop template. Then you click enable template. And now if your agents were to go in and start a loop, it's going to show them, hey, do you want to use this loop template? So I'll create a loop template, or I'll create another loop just to show you how that works. But one of the things I want to remember to tell you is when you create these loop templates, if a document changes and either the market center staff or bar takes those documents out of Dotloop, they're now out of your loop template. So when this agency consent form changed and the guide to agency relationship, we just got new documents for those. Looks like the end of May, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember when. No, that was from today because I just did that. Whenever they sent those out to us, my agents were like, what's wrong with our template? We're missing like 3 or 4 of our documents that we need in all of our templates. Well, because BAR had updated those, they had pulled them out of Dotloop, but they hadn't put the new ones in yet. And so we didn't have access to any of those forms in any of our loops, because when they pull something out of Dotloop, it takes it out of your template. So then I had to go back in and remake those and add them back into our template. So for instance, if I wanted to add something, say that happened with our residential listing here, and I needed to go in, you'd have to go into the documents. What I had to do is go into the seller, Prather Team seller, add that document back in. So add the new updated version, where'd it go? Of the agency, and put it in here and load it the way that we wanted it. And then go back down to the loop template and put it back in the template for the agent. So sometimes if you have that, if your agents are saying, hey, our template, something's wrong with it, we're missing some documents, that's most likely what's happened is BAR is changing the version of the form they want us to use. And so they've pulled it out, but we haven't had time to load it back, the new one back in yet. And so that gets a little frustrating. Because it takes hours. It can take hours to set these all up, and then to have what just gone and nobody warned you, hey, we're taking this out. It's a little frustrating. So I'll show you what it looks like. The templates look like if you start your loop in Dotloop first versus in command. I would highly suggest that you start telling your agents and you teach your agents how to start their loop from command, from the opportunity in command, because like I said, that's a game changer for everybody involved. It's so much simpler to have it all right here and to be able to connect it with just a couple clicks versus downloading everything. But I'm going to go ahead and just gonna make up a property address. I don't know. What can we, let's do Salt Lake. Sure. Pick a random spot. We're gonna click continue. Then you're gonna select, here's where they select their loop template. So we just set up that one that was a test, and you can see that it's down here. So if they wanted to use that, they're gonna click test. You can continue, you can move, change if you accidentally picked the wrong one. But if you hit continue, you can't go back and change it. But we're going to click continue. We never upload a photo. I shouldn't say we never do. We do have one agent that loves to upload the photos of the property. I don't know why, but she always takes the very front picture from the listing on Flex and puts it in here. She's the only one that does it. She likes to do it, so let her do it. Nobody else does. Totally up to you guys. So here's our loop that we just created with the template. And then when we open it, all of those documents that we put in that test loop template pull up. So now the disadvantage of doing the loop right from Dotloop instead of starting it in command is now you have to go in and you have to add your clients, right? So I have to put in here Billy Millionaire at, Big Money, or, Billy at bigmoney.com or whatever, and then assign them to the seller. Or when you do it through command, those people are already in there because you have all of their contact information in command. And so it just shows, it already puts them in the loop.
Mm-hmm.
So then all you have to do is go down and assign the roles versus adding them all in. So it's so much easier if you do it through command, so much faster, so much more efficient for everybody involved. So that was, I feel like, a very quick, very, very quick jog through all of that. Do you guys have any questions about anything?
I don't think so. It's very helpful.
I was going to say quick, but very informative.
And so all of Brooke's folders or whatever, I guess Admin Angels had set up some for her. And she kept describing to me that portion where it was like you put in the address and then it pulls up template, and that's where you get to select everything. And I had no idea what she's talking about because I had never seen that. So it makes sense now.
Hey,
she was like, I feel like I'm crazy because I know that it was there at one point. And I was like, I don't know.
Let me show you one just so you can see. This is the new construction that we just sold. What it looks like. So see, we have all the listing documents are in here, are in one. Mm-hmm. And then we have our pending documents, and we have these stages. I don't know if Kelsey, you were with us. I think it was. I think you might have been with the Market Center staff at that point when the compliance, there were like all these 4 or 5 different stages of the compliance that you had. So we had stage 1, you had to submit these things. And then stage 2, which were the beginning of your pending documents. And then there was a 3rd stage of pending documents that included like your inspection agreement form, something else. I can't remember. Maybe your termite, if you had a termite inspection. So I had actually gone in and labeled documents to have the stage 2, stage 3, so we knew which stage we were at. And then they tried that for like 2 weeks, and then they were like, oh, this is a mess, just go back. Yeah. So then we have closing documents. We don't have, because the builder is still doing a little bit of the punch work at this house. We don't have the official final walk signed yet because they're still working on the stuff that the buyer identified in the what we call a buyer initial walkthrough, or a punch walk, where they go through the house for new construction and like, oh, I want this paint touched up and I want you to do this, and those kind of things. So once the builder gets through with the whole, they have 2 pages of lists. Then they'll sign the final walk, and then I'll move it up here. But just so you get an idea of how we organize our loops. But I'll send this out to you guys, but it's step by step. Do you have any questions, or are there other trainings that you think would be helpful now that you've gotten just a little bit of a peek behind how we use command? I don't know. I mean, we use our checklists, we use notes section, like all kinds of stuff we use in here that I feel like a lot of teams, because command can be super overwhelming because it does so much. And so you get, for me anyway, like I get in my brain and I'm like, oh my God, I got to get this built out and I've got to do this and we've got to do, and then we've got to teach the agents and we've got to, right. That it's sort of like, I don't even know where to start. It just, you kind of get into a spot where you're just frozen. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if there are things that you have heard about, or if you want to kind of continue to peek behind the curtain of, there's not anything special about what we do. We just use command at a level that we've failed our way to. But like, for instance, this is our checklist for a pre-listing. This is a new construction. And so we have these checklists built out where they can come in and check off, and that helps our agents know where things are. And so, right, our agents are sort of always like, well, I don't know where this is, and I don't know where's this deal at, where's the admin with this deal, where are the admin processing on this deal. And so they can go in and use these checklists to then see. Also, we use notes. I do use notes a lot. This is one that Helen is working, so it's not one I usually do. The new construction, I'm teaching Helen how to do that, but Helen can come in here and see. She prefers the paper checklist, but you can come in and you can have your checklist and then you can assign it to someone. So a good example would be at the end of a transaction. Of course, your transaction coordinator has certain things that they have to do, but then you can assign a task to the agent to remind them to go pick up their sign and key box, and it shows on their app. Every day they get a notification of their due, whatever tasks are due that day, right on their app, and it pops up and it says, hey, these are your tasks that are due today. And so then they can open that up and they can see and say, oh, I got to go get that sign and key box because that's closing today. And so then as an admin, you know that the agent is reminded without having to send them an email or anything else, because that task is right there on their app, on their phone. I typically, in notes, I use it to keep track of who the lender is, who the appraiser is, who our title company is, anything else that I want to keep track of. Instead of writing it down on a piece of paper and then having to keep track of that piece of paper, I put it in notes so then I can go back and have all of that information right at my fingertips there. The discussion we've used a little bit. I'm not sure if you guys know that this is available, but it's kind of like a text back and forth. The only problem is that when you put a discussion in there, it does not send a notification to your agent. So your agent has no idea that you've sent them, that you've started a discussion with them, because we were using it to ask for a transaction coordinator to ask our agents, are you done with your inspection repair negotiations? So then our transaction coordinator could reach out to the lending team and say, hey, go ahead and order that appraisal because we're through the inspections. Everything's good there. The deal's staying together. So go ahead and order that. And so our TC was sending a discussion within the agents are like, well, I never saw that because I don't get a notification, which I think is a flaw, but we'll work on that. You know, all the higher ups with KW, who are we? They don't listen to us.
For Dotloop, I know you guys have a team. So
correct.
We do not have a team Dotloop.
Oh, that's a nightmare. That's a nightmare.
Yes. It's a paid service, right?
It is. But so I believe it's $99 a month, but they give you a discount if you pay it all at one time. So every October, I think we get, I can't remember the amount for sure, but they give us either, the bare minimum is a 20%, but I want to say that they actually give us a 25 or 30% discount because we pay all at once. And so every October they have Michael's business credit card, and I know that it's going to hit in October. And so when we were talking about changing from Dotloop to DocuSign, I just, we continued to have those conversations within our team and like, are we changing or are we not changing? What are we doing? Do we have to change to DocuSign or can we keep? And when it came back and said you can keep Dotloop, then you know, I know that it hits in October. And so I know that when we were leading up to that whole discussion with DocuSign, I was just watching our timeline to say, how long do we have to decide? But if you don't have Dotloop for Teams, that's miserable. That's how I started. So I've been with the Prather team since 2015. And to have to log out of one agent in Dotloop to then log into another one wastes so much time. It's worth the money, the efficiency of Dotloop Teams. And I don't even know, honestly, if the template section is going to work for you guys because you don't have Dotloop Teams. You would have to set up the template section in every single individual agent Dotloop.
Yeah, that's my plan, is to set it up under each individual agent.
Yeah, that's miserable.
Yeah.
It's worth the money. Like I went, sorry, Ryan, I'm a pretty straight shooter. One of the very first discussions that Michael and I had was $99 a month. It's worth it for us. And Michael also has admin rights. So on the weekends, none of our admin work on the weekends. And the Prather team, one of the things that I love the best about the Prather team is the flexibility of schedule, but they also are really, really good about, you know, they know that we give everything that we have during our scheduled hours to work. Like we're in here just cranking away, right? You've got my full attention. I'm just kicking tail for you from 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. But after that, 4:30 in the evening, I turn into mom mode. I've got 3 very busy kids. My husband is a coach. And so those evening times are just total chaos. Like I spend more time in chaos in my family life outside of my work hours because of, and they do their best. All of our agents on our team, everybody on our team is so good about saying, okay, it's after 4:30. We really hate to bother you. So if an agent has a question and can't get something to work, because Michael has admin rights as well, he can jump in and he can help with any issues in Dotloop. He does his best on the weekends, right? If they're we have a brand new agent and they're putting a contract together and they need guidance on the agent side, because Michael has admin rights, he can see their Dotloop. He can see the loop that they're working in. He can jump right in, take over, help them make sure everything is correct. And so I can't say enough about Dotloop Teams. I am so glad that we've had Dotloop Teams since I think 2016. Because like I said, that's one of the very first things I talked with Michael about. If you want to scale and you want it to be as efficient as possible and you want me to work, because when I started, I was the only admin on the team. We had 4 agents that were crazy busy. We closed 232 deals with 4 agents and me as the only admin in 2016. And so I was like, we got to do something different because this back and forth in and out of Dotloop is not as efficient as we could be. So there's my plug for Dotloop Teams. It's worth the $99 a month or whatever it is.
Yeah, the going back and
forth.
forth
When we first started. So
and adding like having to add Brooke as like a team member to the loop so that she can see it, and
she has to go in and accept the invitation, yada yada. That's a mess, absolute mess. No. Dotloop Teams is so much easier. The one thing I will say for the Market Center, though, we have learned our way through this was when we moved over, when we have new agents that join our team, the Market Center Ryan will usually help new agents set up a Dotloop, correct, Ryan? Is that something that you do? Yeah. And so if you don't identify the new team member soon enough to the Market Center to say, hey, this person's going to be on our team, Ryan will set them up with a Dotloop. And then we set them up on our team Dotloop. And now they've got 2 profiles in Dotloop. And they're like, I don't know which one I'm supposed to use, because when it pops up, that's hard for them to differentiate. And so then as an admin, I have to log in and I put their picture with their Prather team one, and then I name the other one do not use. And so then they have no questions about which one, because if they use the Market Center one, the Market Center one's not tied to our team. So we can't see any of their loops. The admin can't. So we can't help them with anything. We can't connect everything in command and all of that stuff. So you want to, just as a piece of advice, if you get the Dotloop Teams, you want to identify your team member. If you have a new agent coming in and they say, hey, I want to be on the Prather team, you need to let the Market Center Ryan know as soon as possible that agent is joining us. So we'll handle setting up their Dotloop because they need to be on our Dotloop team. And let me screen share. And that's
Is there
super
a way to
do.
convert it? Like, can Ryan be like, okay, they need to move over?
Nope,
That's-
you gotta call, you have to actually have a conversation with Dotloop and say, we don't want that anymore. Can you get rid of that one? And they're actually supposed to, Dotloop has been really good with us because we've been clients of theirs for so long. Like the Prather team was one of the very first teams to start using Dotloop in Central Kentucky. They had Dotloop before I joined, and I've been with them for 8 years. And so I'm not sure, I think maybe 2014 they started using Dotloop. So they're really good when we call and I say, hey, you know what? We got a little hiccup with one of our team's accounts. And so they'll go in and they merge, they can on their side merge the two or get rid of that second one. So it's not as confusing for the agent. Also, if you have an agent that joined your team that was an agent in a different brokerage that also used Dotloop, that's another thing that kind of plays around that you have to help them understand which profile is which, because they'll have two. So for example, Alex Heister on our team was with Berkshire Hathaway DeMovlin for about 1.5 years before he moved to Keller Williams. So he still has an account, a profile in Dotloop that has all of his deals that he did with DeMovlin, because KREC requires you to have them for 7 years. So he has to be careful that he picks the Prather Team profile versus his DeMovlin profile. And so again, I just went in and typed in do not use, and then put his picture and his name with the one that he wants, that we want him to use. So then that helps him figure out which is which. But to add a person, you just come to people here on your team. You can add trusted service providers. We have a few in here. I don't even know how they got here. Honestly, it's not something that we put in here, but you're going to have your team name here. And then if you want to add a person, you just click add. And they go by, first they go, you can have so when you get a team, you can have up to 10 seats or 10 profiles in your, on your team. And then it goes by 5-person chunks after that. And so from once you get to that 10th person, then they're going to have you pay more in order to have number 11 through 15. Once you get to 16, you're going to have to pay more to have 16 through 20, if that makes sense. But you just add a person, you put their name in, you can see you select a role if they're an agent or if they're an admin. Team member is agent. Admin role lets them see everybody else's stuff, which agents don't want to. You just add their email. It's going to, you can customize a message or you can just send it to them and it's going to have them set up their Dotloop to be on your team. So yeah, I can't imagine still being in just regular Dotloop and everybody having their own. I would poke my eyes out.
Yes, it's fun. That's why I did away with my Dotloop account, because my Dotloop account was still connected to the office Dotloop account where I had everyone's loops.
Yeah.
And so it just was overwhelming in that. So I was like, I'll just log in as them. And now I'm like, this is not the best way to do this.
Yeah, it's a lot to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm open to do any type of admin training. I've told Michael this. I don't know if anybody is really interested in any of this. I mean, I think it helps the single agent too, right? Because a single agent could come in and set their own templates up in Dotloop the same way that we just did for our team. And then it makes them that much more efficient as well. And so I don't know, I'm open to whatever. So if you guys want to,
yeah, I think it was very helpful. And coming from the command perspective too, is like, we've had a lot of conversations recently, like even before we get to the template discussion, that you start in command and that this will create a loop. And I think that if you've used Dotloop before, or if you haven't used either of these things before, a kind of like guided tutorial of how like that pipeline works, but like doesn't work in reverse, is a very helpful conversation for everyone.
Yeah. So when you're in here in this Cultivate, we're getting ready to build this all out for our agents. And so this Cultivate, when you come in here, these are what they call the stages, right? And then you have a phase, you have several phases under each stage. And so the Cultivate, you can create your own, you can see, you can edit them stages. And so you can change, but under Cultivate, you have watch, nurture, hot. You can create a checklist in here for all of these different ones. And so we're getting ready to build this out for our agents. So when they have a new lead, right? I've just got this new lead that y'all sent me that reached out via our website. I've never met this person. I've never had this conversation with this person. What in the world do I need to do? Right? Because Michael, I mean, our agents are pretty good. They know what to do. But if we're bringing a brand new agent to our team,
Right.
and then we're saying, okay, let's plug and play. We want you under contract. And our goal is to have you under contract, at least one deal under contract, say within 45 days, right? That's a pretty aggressive goal for a brand new agent. We're going to teach you how to lead generate. Well, now I've got this lead. What do I do with it?
Right.
And so I can build out a checklist to show them what to do step by step within here. And it pops up a task on their phone every day to say, hey, remember, you got to call this person. You talked to them last week about these things. Now follow up and see where they are with those things. Or you connected them to our lender and the lenders had a conversation. Now you reach out to them 2 days later about after, you know, they had the meeting with the lender. You reach out to them 2 days after that lender, it pops up on their phone and they say, oh yeah, I got to call Billy about how it went, his meeting with the lender, and see what they found out. Right. And so it takes them all the way through those things. And you can just tell them right through here. And then they move from the cultivate stage into the nurture, the hot. Again, you have checklists for all of those things when they're ready to start doing something. This new construction selections is something that we use for our houses for our builders when they're building what's called a spec house. So if it's not a custom build and the client, we've already got a buyer and the client's done the selection, the new construction selections we use to keep track of what selection our team has helped the builder make. Because the builder comes to us and says, you guys know what's hot right now. You know what buyers are looking for. So should I use this type of flooring or should I use this type of flooring, right? So it used to be all the flooring, everybody wanted the real dark hardwood. Well, last summer, early fall, all that shifted and everybody kind of wants a medium, lighter toned hardwood. And so our builders are in that mode of dark hardwood, dark hardwood, dark hardwood. Then we say, hey, wait a minute, don't put that in that spec. That's not what people want anymore. So this selections thing just helps us keep track of where we are to help those builders in that particular house. Okay, we've made these selections and keep track of all of that. So if you were wondering what in the world this is. So then they get to appointment, right? You're scheduling an appointment. Well, how do I do that? What do I need to say? What do I need to share? What are my scripts to try to set that appointment? Then they schedule the appointment. Now that I have the appointment, how do I prepare for the appointment? What in the world do I have to do before I actually go to the appointment? And then when kept, what do I do what happens if I get the paperwork signed, right? I go on a listing presentation and they sign with me. Now, what do I need to do? Or they're not quite ready to sign yet. How do I continue to keep in touch with them to potentially get the paperwork signed to then have a new listing? And then once they get to active, we actually have these built out for the most part. For our admin, we need to add in our agent pieces so then we can just assign the tasks for what, for them, like putting the sign in the key box in the yard. So yeah, I mean, if they use this is a great pipeline to follow all the way through both listings and potential buyers. As Ryan is saying, it's just now that they've got it all set and it's working, I mean, you don't have to go anywhere else. And
right. I know that I forwarded this to Michael, but when Jeffrey Johnson came through and we did that command opportunities class here at the Market Center, he not only uses checklists for every phase of every stage, but he has that written out in a document. Yeah. And I know that I had sent that to Michael. I don't know if he had shared it with you. I don't know if that's something you would be interested in, but like, yeah, that document of like, here are the 5-6 checklist items for the first phase of the first stage. It's great.
Yeah, it is. I'd love to see that. Who was that?
So Jeffrey Johnson, he's an agent. He's a solo agent with us, who just really
George
using command. And so we had him come in and teach an opportunities class because I was like, look, the transaction side of command is what I am always going to be the least familiar with. So I would rather have an agent giving an agent's perspective on how, in fact, I'm using this in a complicit way. And he was very, very helpful. It was very informative.
Yeah. I have one from George Kelly. I don't know if you recognize his name, but I think that I'm not sure if George is in our region, but he did some trainings. Remember when they did that command con thing last fall?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he and his director of operations, they were on there talking, and in that he shared all of their checklists and all of their tags. And I mean, they use it and everybody can create their own, right? Part of it is
Sure.
you hear how other people use it, the more that you dig into it, and then you start having conversations on your team of how do we want to use it, right? What do we want it to look like? And you can build it to do that. And so we have changed. I mean, we started doing this, and then things updated, they improved, then we had to change and all of those things. So we've done all kinds of stuff, but I mean, it's an incredible, you can
Yeah.
build it out to do all kinds of stuff.
From an
And
educational standpoint, I keep coming up against these moments in the command calls where you're like, and it can do all this. And it's like, that's the least helpful thing that I can say, is be like, you can do anything. It's like, and now you're paralyzed by option and won't do
yes,
a single step in any one direction. So like when I found that there were also templates for those checklists, it was like, right, you don't have to come up with this on your own. There are a lot of people, and like you said, you'll figure out how it works best for you. But like, yeah, I've found in our classes, the worst thing I can possibly say is you can do all of these things, or you can do anything, like it's meant to be encouraging, but I think it may be the worst possible thing I can say.
yeah, because it gets to be overwhelming, because it's like, I don't even know where to start. And so,
Sure.
yeah, just get your contact in command with as much information as possible, and then start using the pipeline for the agents. Like our agents, that's all they do in here. They know how to do the tasks. They actually don't even put their own contacts in for the most part. They know how, and they do occasionally if they have someone that they want in on a weekend. But we have a whole system that captures leads, and then they send it over to our cyberbacker, and she put them in here, the contact in, and assigns it to the agent. So then all the agent has to do is jump in. Your person is there, they're assigned to you. Now you create your opportunity, you follow them through all the way through the pipeline of the opportunity. Your loop, all of that is in there. They don't ever do anything with the commissions. Once their paperwork is done, they don't ever touch command again. They can go in, I shouldn't say that, because they do go in and they call their past clients and they put notes and that kind of thing. But so they know how to work a contact card, and they know how to create an opportunity and a loop to get the documents signed. Bare minimum stuff, right? We don't want them playing in designs. We don't want them trying to create smart plans. We want them generating leads, following up on those leads, signing contracts, right? And so like I said, they know the bare minimum. The admin team, myself and our cyberbacker, probably know the most about command. The great thing about cyberbackers, if you don't have one, they have their own command training. They have their own trainings. And so I can say to our cyberbacker, Maddie, I want you to learn about this part of command. And so she can go back to her cyberbacker supervisor and say, how do I learn the most possible about this piece of command? And then I can turn that, once she demonstrates to me, hey, this is how this works, this is what we can do with it, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great, let's start doing it. And so the other piece I would say with the agents is, if you show them how it all works together, right? And then you say, what I found successful is, I don't experience the use of command the way they experience it, right? And even Dotloop, the things that you're doing in Flex, all of this, you do different things than what I do. And so I can build this out in a way that makes sense for me, but I use it completely differently than you do. And because you're the agent who I want to provide the top level of service for, I need your feedback, because I can build it out the way that I think it makes sense for you guys to use it, but I'm not the one using it in that capacity. And so our agents know, I am open to any type of feedback. If I have built something within command or put it in there and it's not working the way that is most efficient or helps them the most, then they can come back and say, hey, let's have a conversation about this. And so then we walk through that, and I get their feedback, and we tweak so it is the most efficient for them to use, and it's easiest for them to just jump in and do what they need to do and back out. Because again, I work completely differently in command and in Dotloop and in Flex than they do. And so we just try to all sit down and that also creates a buy-in from the agents, right? Like, because I have a say in what we're doing, right? Jen starts to build it, and if it doesn't work right, she's always open to, and Michael too, they're always open to our feedback. So now it's the collaboration, and I get to say, and so then they can, we can work to build it to work for everyone the most efficiently, I guess, is the way that I would say it. And then the agents aren't as overwhelmed because we keep them playing in pieces that are eventually going to lead to money for them, right? Like we tell them all the time, we want your 20% are only things that are going to make you money. If that activity isn't going to lead to you making money, then it's not yours to do.
Yeah.
Because the split that you pay in for the team buys you leverage to say, this isn't going to make me money, so I'm not going to do this. I'm going to hand it to someone that can do it behind the scenes so I can focus on the next activity that's going to make me money. And so having them know that they can come back and have a conversation about how things are built out and how we do things and right tweaking and all of that, it all has to work together or it doesn't work. So just having them understand that too on the team side. Because I mean, like I said, if they don't have that buy-in, they don't feel like they can have that conversation with you to help you build so they can be successful and do what they need to do in an efficient way. It's just a mess. And they're not perfect. We're not perfect. We all make mistakes. They don't always start their loop in command. Sometimes they start it in Dotloop and we just roll with it. But they try really hard to always do it that way. So I don't know. Like I said, if you guys want any command training at all, you want any Dotloop, anything admin that I could potentially help you with, there's no secret sauce in anything that we do. We've just been doing it for a long time and have failed a ton and learned a ton. And so we're willing to let you see how we do things, and you can ask questions and then take what you're doing, what we share and make it your own. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This was very helpful.
Yeah, Shelly, I'm pretty sure that we're recording. We are. And so if you want, I think Ryan can send it to you so you can see all of the crazy that just happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you'll send us that
step by step. Yeah, I will. Yeah. And if you guys have any questions as you're building stuff out, if you get stuck and are like, hey, I'm on this step, but I can't figure out what I'm supposed to do, you can reach out to me. I'm willing to help. So
cool. Thank you, Jen.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.